Hey family, I've been thinking about doing this video for quite a while now, and it was kind of triggered by something that happened to my wife and I. We were at Sam's Club and we were approached by a young lady in the parking lot who had a little baby strapped to her chest, and she was looking for money, but she was so shy she was not even coming out and asking. But we understood what was going on. And I went to the car and I went and I got Angie and I told her what I had seen, and we went looking for this young lady. And we found her, and it was like easily 100 degrees. Well, the weather's been hot. This is now middle of July, 2026. 90 degrees is like, we're considering that pretty cool, pretty nice. Today, about 91. Anyway, the topic is random acts of kindness. Now, in this particular case, we were able to give her some money, and hopefully she was able to do something good for her baby. And one of the biggest challenges that I've seen is people going through the process of living, and they see people that are in need, and yet they don't choose to do anything. They, a small thing, a couple of dollars, helping out so many times. So I remember when I lived in San Diego, we used to go out to a nice restaurant, and of course the portions were so big you could never finish all of them. And invariably, those leftovers never made it home, because on the way home, we'd see somebody living on the street, and we'd stop and ask them if they would like to have our doggy bag, if you will, which was really pretty high-end food. And of course, the leftovers never made it home. Anyway, I wanted to find a random act of kindness. This is something that you do off the cuff. You weren't planning it, and you're not looking for anything back. There's no quid pro quo. You don't expect this person to do anything. You're just helping out. So my suggestion is, whether it's a large thing or a small thing, do it, and do it now. So I was thinking about some of the times when I've been on the giving end of this. I was in the fitness industry many years ago, and one of our trainers, his car broke, and that was it. Couldn't do it. We had an extra car. It wasn't a great car, but it was a car, and it was paid off. And we thought, Jay needs a car. And guess what? We gave Jay the car. And that got him through a tough time. And then he was able to get on his feet and move along, and there you go. So I want to cover another little base here. Even though you're not looking for something out of this, there is a thing called the universal law of compensation, which basically states that you can't honestly try and help somebody else without helping yourself. Now, whether that's your motivation or not, and we're talking about the times when it really isn't. But as time goes by, something will come up where that act of kindness comes back to you. And I really think that whether you're giving money or a smile, food, water, a car, that it's one of those things where things are going to come back to you. But I want you to simply forget about it. Meaning, don't worry about that. If you have a chance to give, if you have a chance to take care of somebody, down life's road, it always comes back. I actually teach it this way. I have done other videos where I've used this analogy. Whatever you put out in the world will come back to you at least 3 times, and a report is made, in my opinion, just based on my spiritual upbringing. That report goes into something called your Akashic record, and it's there. You've done it. And as time goes by, I think there is an accounting. I think at the end of your life, you'll have an opportunity to do a little life review. I think those acts of kindness, when you weren't looking for anything, you just saw somebody in need and you took care of it, are quite beautiful. And I can think of so many times, even when I had my daughters in the car, we'd be driving along and I'd see somebody on the side of the road, flashers on, and I'd think, let's find out. I'd pull in behind them. Hey, how are you? What do you need? Sometimes they'd say, oh, my tire is flat. And today, t-shirt and shorts. This is no big deal to do. But back then, most of the time I was in a suit, tie, and I'd say, not a problem, take my suit jacket off, roll the sleeves up. 10 minutes later, tires off, spare tires back on, and they're down the road. And I would never take money for that. It's like, no, just go. And these are the opportunities that you have to be able to jump in and do something that maybe somebody isn't equipped to do. One time, it was a lady and she had a couple of kids in the car, and she said, well, I need your address. I said, look, I don't need any money. She goes, no, I'm going to send you something. I'm going to, actually it was a book on golf and life, and that was a great gift. Wasn't expecting it, didn't need it, but it was nice to have anyway. One time, I saw a family on the side of the road and my kids were in the car, and guess what? They actually needed a radiator. Their radiator had completely blown, and they were out on like 95. And this was on a way to Florida. So we piled all their kids in the car, gave them all water, got everybody hydrated, went to the auto parts store. They were able to buy the radiator. It wasn't terribly expensive for whatever it was that they had. I had replaced so many of these things in my own vehicles that it was nothing to worry about. I think it took me 10 minutes to get the old one out and another 10 minutes to put the new one in. And basically half an hour later, after hugs all around, they just went on their merry way and completed their trip. So, sometimes they'd be out of gas. If I had gas in the car, I often did, I'd keep an extra gallon, and boom, they'd be on their way in a minute or two. Sometimes they'd need a ride. Hop on in. I know there's some of you out there that are saying, Jack, that's not safe. I'm 6'6", about 235, always been in shape. And the idea is that even if somebody attempted something, which I doubted they ever would, because you're helping them out. Why would they do anything other than be grateful? So, there you go. Now, something else. Sometimes you'll recognize that somebody's in need and they are either too proud or embarrassed to ask for help. If you see there's a challenge, just persist and help them out anyway. One time, I had an extreme example where, middle of a very cold winter, we'd just gotten over Thanksgiving, and our local giant food store had hundreds of pies that were a seasonal item. They weren't going to be able to sell them because, these were apple pies, pumpkin pies, cherry pies, all the things for Thanksgiving. And we said, hey, if we can give these pies out, can we have them? Interestingly enough, by asking, they said, yeah. We gave them to police, we gave them to firefighters, we went by the firehouse and the police station. We went by shelters, made sure the shelters had tons and tons of these things. And this was a real treat at that giving time of year. And sometimes we'd just see somebody on the street, oh, excuse me, come here. Here's a pie. That might have been the only food that they had for the day, but you know what? Good pie, yum yum, everybody enjoyed. These are the types of things I'm talking about, a random act of kindness. There's no reason you have to do it, it's not your job. It simply is one human taking care of other humans. It's a great thing to do. And just thinking of some of the other things that I've been able to kind of just give. I remember one night I got a phone call from a dear friend of mine who had a sewage explosion in their basement. The sewer just overflowed, ruined their carpet, smelled to high heaven, and they didn't know what to do. And I just came over with my carpet knife, and it was completely ruined. So I just cut the old carpet up into strips, rolled it up, took it out, tossed it in the back of the pickup, and cleaned up the mess. And then they could kind of start fresh from there. Again, not expecting anything. I got a nice thank you. That's perfectly fine. And some of the other things that I'm actually kind of cool, or I'm good at doing, I can find things. So I've had people lose keys. One time we had somebody who's turned out to be a great friend who'd rented a boat next to ours. And one of the challenges was the keys were supposed to be on the boat somewhere, but they didn't know where. So I kind of used my spidey sense and got up on the boat, looked around, just knowing where I'd put them, and there they were. And we got her into the boat in the middle of the winter, so that was a good thing. Other times, when I was in real estate, now this is going way back, I helped a lot of people that otherwise would not have been able to buy a house. I worked with their finances, got them, got their debt in control, got rid of insurances that were not necessary. And when all was said and done, and they probably used, their last dollars to get into the house, I would give them a gift. And the gift was, you pack up where you are, and I will come over and move you. And I was super strong and super fast, and I just have them pull up a truck. I say, just get out of my way. And I'm really good at a little game called Tetris also. So you put things where they're supposed to be. Anyway, and I would move them. I'd get them all packed up in the truck, drive to their new home, and then offload them, get them done. It took me a couple hours. In the grand scheme of things, was there remuneration for that? Not really. But was it a good thing to do for folks that really could use it at the time that it happened? Heck yeah. And I think maybe the last one that I'll leave you with is a random act of kindness that happened to me, and I don't even know that the person realized what they were doing and that it would have such an effect. But when I was in, 7th or 8th grade, I guess, maybe 9th grade, 7th or 8th, I think. There was, I was kind of a clothes horse. I looked as much like the teachers as the teachers did. But anyway, one day there was something going on. There was a test where we had to study some new material. And one of the people that I considered like one of the smartest kids in the class, and her name was Maria Muldoon. Maria, if you ever get a chance to see this, God bless you, honey. Thank you so much. But you came up to me, or Maria came up to me, and she said, "Can I ask you a favor?" I said, "Sure, what?" She said, "Could you help me study for this? I don't understand it, and you are so smart, and you get this stuff really easily." Boy, I tell you, my head just went, whoa. But I tell you what, no matter what, I would help Maria, and really anybody else. But the key was, it affirmed the intelligence. And after that, I never again questioned my own intelligence or my ability to help others. So maybe that was kind of the foundation of this, going back a long way. One more that just happened to me that it was, I'm giving you examples so that you can kind of think about when you've received and when you've given. So I used to have a little Porsche. It was a cute little car. But again, so many times this happens in the middle of a snowstorm or something. Well, we were going, I had my daughter in the car with me, and she was 7 or 8 years old. And we were going to West Virginia, which is where her grandparents and aunts and uncles lived. And out of nowhere, this snowstorm came in, and I realized I'm going down the road a little, slipping and sliding. I'm like, nah, this is not good. Well, out in West Virginia, quite often even off of roads like 95 or whatever, the main roads going out there or whatever it was. There are sometimes driveways that are literally right off of the highway, and I saw one, and I pulled into this drive, and I'm thinking, well, at least we can stay warm in the car, and we're off the road, so we're not going to get in a bad accident. And wouldn't you know that the person who lived in that house saw us in the driveway, came out, brought us inside, wouldn't take no for an answer, and gave us a place, gave us a meal, gave us a place to stay that night, fed us breakfast the next morning, and we got on our merry way when the roads were clear and it was safe to drive again in this little kind of slippery car. So I've been on the good side of that. I even had a circumstance one time where, actually it's been more than one time, where I had the circumstance of needing to have a home, meaning I was living out of my car. And some friends said, hey, we've got this other boat over here. Maybe if you can clean up the boat a little bit, you can stay on that. So I did. And I was on there for quite a little while. And eventually got back on my feet. I was able to get things going. But that little random act of kindness, they didn't have to do that. I was living in my car, sleeping there, and using the marina's bathroom in the morning to shower up and get dressed and go to work. But there was that little tough time, and somebody just out of the goodness of their heart decided that there was a place where I could stay. They knew about it, I didn't, but they were able to provide that. So I've been on the good side of this on more than one occasion. One time, a dear friend of mine shocked the heck out of me, actually. But it was my assistant at work, and I was going through, unfortunately, a divorce. And sometimes they're expensive, but we had made an agreement where if I could come up with a certain amount of money, and it wasn't a little bit, it was quite a bit, it was about $10,000. And the thought was that if I was able to give the mother of my children a nice chunk of change, about 10 grand, they could get themselves started again. And this person, my dear friend Deborah Lipsky, she's passed on now, said, okay, I'll get it for you. I said, what? And she meant it. She said, I'll do that. You can pay me back when you can. Random act of kindness, but it allowed me to be able to gently disengage in this relationship and get my kids and be able to cover some bases there. So that 10 grand came out of literally nowhere. And I paid it back over time. Actually, I paid it back by working for them, cleaning their house and doing what they needed to do because they were a little bit older and needed the help at that time. Anyway, I wanted to talk about this idea of helping your fellow man. I think in this day and age, boy, there's plenty of people out there that whether they're in the parking lot needing some money, they might need a cold drink, in this hot weather that we're experiencing. But there's a chance that you can do something that maybe nobody else will. And all I'm suggesting to you right now is that life is sweet when we take care of each other. And I hope that you take this message of random act of kindness, and the next time that you see somebody and you can help them, that you do it. Just don't worry about what anybody else is going to say. If they say, oh no, they're just going to go buy drugs or whatever. Still, if your heart says it's the right thing to do it. Anyway, it's great to have these opportunities to kind of share some of my life wisdom with you and pass on these inclinations of doing good in the world while you still have a chance, because these lives, interestingly enough, are not permanent. Now, I'm 68 years old. Lord knows whether I've got a year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years left. Not sure. Had a stroke last year, so that certainly makes you think about your mortality. But right now, my concern is for you. And it's for you to give yourself that opportunity of being able to say, hey, let me help. And I got to tell you, it is one of the most wonderful feelings in the world, and I hope you take advantage of it. Anyway, that's all for today. My name is Jack McAdory. The name of the channel is In Search of Purpose Today. Well, that's a pretty good purpose. Engaging in random acts of kindness. And I hope that you look for somebody soon, maybe today. Give them a smile, give them a bottle of water, give them a couple of dollars, whatever you can do, and make a difference in somebody's life. Anyway, there we go. Have a beautiful day. Love y'all. Bye.